On Christmas Day, my son gave his mother-in-law a $53,000 diamond necklace. I got a $10 plastic flower. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. I just watched the room light up around them as if I wasn't even standing there. The living room of the Langston house was bright enough to sting the eyes. White lights wrapped around the staircase, silver garlands hung over the fireplace, and half a dozen phones were already recording. Ethan stood in the center of the room, holding a velvet box like it was a royal offering. Lydia kept her phone lifted, her smile wide, making sure every angle of the moment went online. "Go on, open it," Ethan said, presenting the box to Martha. Martha lifted the lid with slow, theatrical care. The diamonds caught the overhead lights immediately, scattering bright sparks across the walls. A few guests gasped. One woman whispered, "My goodness." Another said, "He really loves his mother-in-law." Martha held the necklace against her throat, angling it for the cameras. "He treats me like a queen," she said proudly. Ethan laughed. "Only the best." Lydia turned her camera toward him, then toward the necklace, then toward the guests. She spoke loudly, making sure her live stream picked up every word. "My husband's such a giver. He always knows how to make the women in his life feel special." People clapped. Some took pictures. I stood behind the group, my hands folded neatly in front of me. I didn't smile. I didn't move. Then Lydia turned toward me. "And for you," she said lightly. She didn't reach for the velvet. She didn't reach for anything elegant. She held out a small plastic-wrapped stem, a single bright pink fake flower with a $10 price tag still stuck to it. She didn't even bother taking it off. "Just something small," she said. "You know, something simple." A few people laughed quietly. Someone near the tree said, "That's cute." Another whispered, "Well, she's easy to please." I took the flower with both hands. The stem bent under my fingers. The petals were stiff and shiny, the kind of cheap plastic you find in discount bins. I didn't force a smile. I didn't give Lydia the reaction she wanted. I simply held the flower and let the room keep laughing. Lydia angled her phone toward me. "Come on, Mom," she said in a playful tone that wasn't playful at all. "Say something for the live stream." I met her eyes. "Plastic lasts a long time," I said evenly. People laughed again, like I had told a joke they didn't understand. Ethan raised his glass. "Mom, lighten up. It's Christmas. Say something funny." I didn't move from where I stood. "Some families last," I said quietly. "Some don't." More laughter. Forced, awkward, waiting for someone else to set the tone. No one in that room knew how to handle silence, so they covered it with noise. Lydia rolled her eyes. "It's not about money," she said, adjusting her phone again. "It's about love." I looked at the diamonds glowing against Martha's neck. I looked at the plastic flower bending in my hand. I didn't say a word. But inside, the thought was clear and sharp. If it isn't about money, why does it cost $53,000? Another camera flash hit my face. Lydia pushed closer, making sure she caught my expression on her live stream. "Smile, Mom." I didn't. Martha lifted her chin higher, admiring herself in her phone screen. "It's stunning," she said. "Absolutely stunning." Ethan kissed Lydia's cheek and pulled her close for a picture. A cluster of guests circled them, congratulating, praising, admiring. It was a performance, and they were proud of their roles. I felt the buzz of my phone in my pocket. Earlier that morning, I had received a bank alert, a withdrawal matching the price of the necklace. It came from the equity line tied to my house, a line that required my signature, my real one. I tightened my grip on the flower. The stem cracked slightly, but I didn't let it snap. I lifted my chin and watched the light from the diamonds scatter across the room again. It touched everyone except me. That was fine. I remembered every detail, and I didn't forget a thing. The dining room glowed under a chandelier so bright it made every glass on the table shine like polished ice. Guests settled into their seats, still buzzing over the diamond display in the living room. Martha sat at the head of the table, her new necklace sparkling against her neck like she'd worn it her whole life. Lydia stayed close to her, phone never leaving her hand. Ethan stood behind them, soaking in the admiration. I took my seat near the end of the table. Not too close, not too far. Just where they expected me to be. Ethan lifted his wine glass. "A toast," he announced loudly. Conversations dropped. Phones angled upward. Lydia leaned into Martha, making sure the camera caught all three of them in one perfect frame. Ethan grinned. "To Christmas, to family, to the people who make life beautiful." Martha tapped her glass against his. "And to thoughtful gifts," she added, tilting her head just enough for the diamonds to catch the light again. People laughed. They always laughed when Martha said anything, as if her approval validated their presence in the room. Ethan pointed toward me. "Come on, Mom. Say something. Give us a smile." I lifted my water glass, steady and calm. "I already did." A few guests chuckled politely, unsure if they should laugh harder. Lydia rolled her eyes and whispered, "She's in one of her moods." The woman next to her leaned in and whispered back, "Maybe she didn't like the flower." They both giggled, loud enough for the table to hear. I kept my face steady, still, controlled. The waiter brought out the first course. People leaned forward, admiring the presentation. Cameras rose again. Lydia filmed the food as if it were another expensive gift. Martha noticed me looking at her necklace and smiled with thin satisfaction. "It's exquisite, isn't it?" she asked the woman on her right. "Ethan always knows what suits me." The woman nodded enthusiastically. "It must have cost a fortune." "Price doesn't matter," Martha said sweetly. "It's the thought behind it." I looked down at the plastic flower resting beside my plate. Someone had placed it there when I wasn't looking. Its stiff petals shone under the chandelier, the price sticker still stuck to the stem. Across the table, Lydia raised her glass. "Mom, you haven't said thank you for the gift." A few eyes shifted toward me again. I looked at the flower, then at the necklace, then back at Lydia. "I prefer practical things," I said. The table erupted with laughter, louder this time, as if I'd made a joke on purpose. People slapped their napkins lightly against their laps. Even the waiter tried not to smile. Ethan leaned back in his chair, pleased. "See? Mom gets it. It's all in good fun." I held his gaze for a moment. "Of course," I said. He didn't hear the edge in my voice, or maybe he chose not to. The conversation jumped from one topic to another. Vacations, promotions, who had been accepted into what country club. People bragged about homes, cars, gifts, and investments. The room buzzed with status. Everything was surface-level shine. I stayed quiet, listening, watching, filing away every comment, every glance, every shift in tone. People show you who they are when they think you're irrelevant. Lydia lifted her phone again and pointed it toward me. "Mom, look here." I didn't. "Come on," she said. "Just smile a bit." "I'm fine," I said, keeping my voice even. She lowered the phone with an exaggerated sigh. "You're impossible sometimes." The room chuckled again. I reached for my water glass, and the stem of the plastic flower brushed my hand. I moved it aside, gently but firmly. Lydia noticed. "Don't lose it," she said with a smirk. "It's sentimental." I looked her straight in the eye. "It'll last. Plastic doesn't break easily." The laughter came again, but softer this time, uncertain. Ethan leaned closer. "Mom, lighten up. It's Christmas. No need to be dramatic." I set my glass down. "Drama requires an audience," I said. "I prefer facts." Silence flickered at the edges of the table. People glanced at one another, unsure what I meant, unsure if they should laugh or not. Then Martha cleared her throat, and the chatter resumed instantly. I leaned back slightly in my chair. My head dipped in a polite posture, but my eyes were open, sharp, absorbing every detail. Their laughter echoed through the room, bright and hollow. Inside, the decision settled. They wanted a scene. I gave them silence. The hallway felt colder than the rest of the house, quiet enough for my thoughts to fall into place. I stopped beside the long mirror. My reflection stared back at me, steady, composed, untouched by the chaos behind the dining room doors. The plastic flower rested limp in my hand. Footsteps clicked closer. Lydia appeared in the mirror before she appeared beside me, Her arm lifted, phone still recording. Walking off already? We weren't done laughing. I placed the plastic flower on the console table and straightened my spine. You were busy. I didn't want to interrupt the show. Her jaw tightened. It was a light joke. You took it too personally. I touched the bent stem with one finger. It bent easily. That's the point, she scoffed. It's cute. You should act grateful. My eyes rose to meet hers through the glass. Grateful? For the gift, she pushed. For being part of the family. For being included. Included? My fingertips tapped lightly on the table. That's an interesting word. She folded her arms. Oh, come on, it wasn't that deep. My reflection didn't blink. $53,000 for your mother. $10 for your husband's mother. Tell me again how deep you want it to be. Her phone lowered a fraction. You're being dramatic. Ethan used the house equity for all of us. It's normal. The words hung there like a confession she didn't realize she made. House equity, I repeated. Lydia shifted her weight, arms tightening around her chest. An old authorization you signed years ago. Perfectly legal. Expired authorization. Her lips parted. I turned slowly, enough for her to see my expression directly. You dug through old documents. That's not, she struggled. You used my credit line for a necklace. The hallway swallowed her silence. Her throat bobbed. Ethan checked everything. He said it was fine. I stepped 1 inch closer. She didn't move. Did you check? It was already signed. You forged the part you needed. My eyes locked onto her hand gripping the phone. You were sloppy. Her fingers twitched. Her phone shook. You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped. You live-streamed the entire night. My gaze dipped to her device. Do you think your own camera would lie for you? Fear overtook her posture. Her breaths shortened. Nora, don't twist this. I'm not twisting anything. My voice remained low, calm. I'm observing. Her back touched the wall. Ethan said you'd never fight us. That's his habit, I replied. Confusing kindness with weakness. She bristled. You won't take this to court. You took my house there first. Her voice pitched higher. We needed the money. We needed the necklace. My family matters too. And I don't? My brows lifted once. After everything you took from me tonight? Her mouth opened, but only shallow breaths escaped. I moved closer, closing the gap until she could see every detail in my eyes. I watched you hold that necklace like a trophy. I watched you hand me plastic. I watched you laugh. My words landed in steady beats. And I watched your husband drain my equity line without a blink. Lydia flinched. He didn't mean... He did. I cut her off gently, a hand lifted. Not pointing, not accusing, just raised enough to silence her. He meant every bit of it. And so did you. Her facade slipped. She looked small for the first time. You won't win, she whispered. I already did. I tapped her phone again. You created the evidence. Her breath hitched. You think attention is power, I continued. But attention is a spotlight, and spotlights expose everything. Lydia tried to swallow the panic creeping up her neck. Ethan will fix it. Then he should hurry, I replied. He'll need daylight. Her eyes widened. What are you planning? Nothing complicated. I nodded toward the dining room. You handed me humiliation. I will hand you consequences. Her knees weakened. She reached for the wall. I lifted the plastic flower from the console and gently extended it toward her. She stared at it as if it burned. Take it, I murmured. It belongs where it started. She finally reached out with a trembling hand. The flower drooped immediately. It fits, I added. Her breath quivered. Please don't. I stepped back, letting her sentence collapse on its own. The door at the end of the hallway opened slightly from the draft. I walked toward it without another glance. Lydia stayed frozen against the wall, clutching the cheap flower with the same hand that had held her phone so confidently just minutes earlier. At the door, I paused just long enough for her to hear my final line. "You wanted a scene. This is the beginning." I pushed the door open and stepped into the cold, letting it close behind me with a soft, decisive click. The cold outside felt sharper than any light inside the house. Frost clung to the brick steps. The river's dark surface barely moved. I walked toward my car, parked along the curve of the driveway, each step steady, each breath measured. Behind me, the door swung open. Ethan's voice cut through the quiet. "Mom, stop right there." I didn't turn immediately. I let him walk the distance, let him feel like he was closing in on me. When he was 3 steps behind, I faced him. Lydia rushed out next, arms wrapped around herself. Martha appeared last, clutching her diamond necklace with both hands as if the cold might steal it. Ethan moved in front of me, blocking the path to my driver's door. "You can't leave like this." "You already left," I replied. "You left the moment you touched my house." His brows pulled together. "It was old paperwork, a basic authorization, nothing major." My trunk clicked open, controlled and deliberate. I reached inside and retrieved a thick, sealed envelope. Its weight instantly shifted the air. Lydia's eyes went straight to it. "What is that?" "Proof," I answered. She stiffened. "Proof of what?" I stepped closer, placing the envelope on the trunk so the light hit it cleanly. "Let's start with the equity withdrawal. You used an expired authorization from a file you shouldn't have touched." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "It wasn't expired." The seal on the envelope caught a glare from the porch lights. "Look again." Lydia exhaled shakily. "This is ridiculous. You're making it sound criminal." The envelope's corner tapped twice against the metal. "You already did that yourselves." Ethan's face drained. "Mom, it was a gift, a one-time thing." $53,000 is not a thing, it's theft. Lydia threw her hands up. "Here we go. You always twist stories. You're blowing this up." "Am I?" I folded my arms. "Your own live stream spells out the entire plot. Every brag, every slip." Her hands flew to her phone. The panic was instant. "You recorded it?" she whispered. "You recorded it," I corrected. "You pointed your camera at your face and handed me the evidence." Martha stepped forward, voice trembling with outrage. "Enough. Nora, it was a Christmas gift. Don't pretend you've never given us anything cheap." I glanced at her necklace. "The difference is, I didn't buy your gifts with stolen money." Her hand flew to her chest. Ethan moved between us, trying to shield her. "Mom, calm down. We can fix this." "You had the chance to fix it before you touched the equity line." His jaw tightened. "It's still family property." "No," I replied. "It's mine. The house is solely in my name. You know it. Lydia knows it. Martha knows it." My gaze locked onto each of them like a quiet spotlight. "You just hoped I wouldn't do anything about it." Lydia stepped forward, voice raised. "Why are you trying to ruin Christmas? We just wanted Martha to feel appreciated." "Then appreciate her with your own money." Her breath hitched. "You don't get it. Appearances matter. The necklace was important." "So was my home," I countered. Silence, the kind that breaks dignity in half. Ethan reached toward the envelope. "Let me see it." My hand blocked his before he touched it. "You had no problem touching what wasn't yours before. Not this time." He dropped his hand slowly. "What are you planning?" Lydia demanded. I lifted the envelope just enough so she could see the legal header. "Consequences." Martha stepped back. "You wouldn't dare." I already started. Ethan's breathing grew uneven. "Mom, please, we didn't mean—" "You meant every step," I answered. "You meant the withdrawal. You meant the necklace. You meant the humiliation." His voice cracked. "Mom, you wanted a spectacle," I continued, "and I was the easiest target in the room." Silence again. Their breathing drowned under the cold wind. I placed the envelope back on the trunk. "Tomorrow morning, we meet with Martin. He'll sort out the forgery and the theft, And the house. Ethan shook his head. Martin? You called him? He's expecting us at 9. Lydia's eyes widened. No, this is a misunderstanding. We can talk later. You had all night to talk, I replied. You chose to laugh. Ethan stepped forward again. Mom, don't go, please. You emptied my equity, I said. You removed my consent. You crossed every boundary I ever gave you. His voice softened with desperation. I can pay it back. With what? My eyes held his. Your credit score? Her influencer sponsorships? Martha's jewelry? The diamond necklace glittered like it was mocking her. Martha pulled it off, clutching it in her fist. We'll return it. Her voice trembled. Just don't drag us to court. I looked at her hand. The diamonds dangled between her fingers, cold and guilty. You're not returning it to me, I replied. You're returning it to the truth. Ethan's shoulders fell as if the weight finally reached him. Mama, he whispered. The word was too late. I closed the envelope, slid it beneath my arm, and opened my car door. Lydia's breath caught. You're leaving? You left first, I answered. Ethan stood frozen, unable to move as the engine turned over. The porch lights reflected off the envelope in my lap. Their faces appeared small through the windshield, shaken, cornered, exposed by their own choices. I shifted the gear. Ethan stepped forward one last time. Mom, what are you going to do? I met his eyes through the glass. Exactly what you taught me tonight, I replied. Protect myself. The headlights washed over their stunned faces as I rolled down the driveway, the envelope safe beside me. For the first time all evening, the cold air felt clean. Clara's porch light glowed warm against the dark morning sky when I pulled in. The river fog still clung to the ground, curling around my tires like it wanted to follow me inside. I stepped out, envelope tucked under my arm, breath steady. Not shaken, not tired, just clear. The front door opened before I even knocked. Clara stood there in her robe, gray streaks in her bun, eyes sharp behind her glasses. You drove in the middle of the night. I lifted the envelope slightly. I brought work. Her brows rose. That's never good. Inside, her kitchen smelled like chamomile and old books. She moved like someone who had seen storms and understood their rhythm. Sit, she motioned, pulling out a chair. You look like someone hit the truth too hard and too fast. They didn't hit anything, I replied, shrugging off my coat. They simply revealed themselves. She poured the tea, the steam rising slow and steady. Tell me what they did. I slid the envelope toward her. Start with this. Clara opened it. The papers unfolded with a soft, damning sound. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second. Her lips formed a tight line. They pulled from the equity? Without consent? They dug up a dead authorization and pretended it still breathed. She leaned back, exhaling long. This is fraud, Nora. I know. Her gaze lifted, studying my face. You're too calm. I recorded them. She blinked once, as if recalibrating. Recorded? Lydia live-streamed everything. Every brag, every confession, every slip. Clara tapped the table with 2 fingers, a rhythm of disbelief. Please, tell me you saved it. I unlocked my phone and turned it so she could see the frozen thumbnail. Lydia's face mid-laugh, diamonds flashing behind her. With a swipe, voices filled the kitchen. Lydia's voice echoed through the speaker. Ethan used the house equity. It's basically ours. Mom doesn't mind. Clara's hand rose to her chest. Oh, my lord. Another swipe. Martha's voice chimed in faintly. He treats me like a queen. Clara's eyes sharpened behind her glasses. This isn't just evidence. This is a public humiliation documented in 1080p. They wanted the world to see, I murmured, taking my tea. Now they will. Clara leaned in. Walk me through the night. I took a slow sip. Diamond necklace for Martha. $10 plastic flower for me. Clara froze. A plastic flower? Bent stem. Price tag still attached. She inhaled sharply. And you stayed quiet through that? I smiled. I placed the cup down gently. Silence is louder than crying. Clara's eyes softened. And after? I confronted no one. They confronted themselves. I tapped the envelope by touching what wasn't theirs. Clara shook her head slowly, awe creeping in. You didn't raise your voice once, did you? A raised voice ruins leverage. She laughed under her breath. You terrify me when you're like this. Good. Clara reached for the papers again. So what is your next step? I have a meeting with Martin at 9. Martin Cole? Her tone lifted. The only lawyer who reads every comma? That's why I called him. She tapped the envelope lightly. And you'll give him this. Everything. The kettle clicked off behind her, but neither of us moved. Clara's gaze narrowed with calculated interest. What exactly will Martin do? Verify the forgery, confirm the withdrawal, secure the house. Clara tilted her head. And Ethan? He'll face the consequences of touching my property. And Lydia? I traced the rim of my cup lightly. She'll learn the value of attention when it turns against her. Clara's expression shifted. Admiration, maybe pride, maybe fear. You planned this quickly. They gave me everything I needed. All I had to do was collect. Clara leaned forward, lowering her voice even in her own kitchen. Did Ethan try to stop you from leaving? He tried to reason, then to beg, then to guilt. My eyes steadied. None of it worked. Clara shook her head again. Nora Langston, you are colder than the frost on my porch. Cold keeps things clear. A long silence settled between us, not heavy, just honest. Finally, Clara folded her hands. What is the end goal? Balance, I replied. Not revenge. Her gaze dropped to the envelope. And the house? It returns to peace. And Ethan? She asked quietly. He gets exactly what he earned. Clara studied me for a long moment. You're not doing this because you're hurt. I don't act from hurt. You're doing this because they crossed a line. They crossed a deed. Clara pressed her lips together, nodding once. Then I support you. I slid the phone her direction again. Listen to this part. Another clip played. Ethan's voice, panicked. Mom, she needed the necklace. It was for the image. Clara grimaced. The image? I let the video end on Lydia's laugh. Clara placed the phone down carefully, as if setting down something poisonous. This isn't a family issue anymore. This is a legal battle they started. They'll learn that tonight was the last time they used my name without permission. Clara poured more tea, slower this time. You know, Nora, most people would have screamed, thrown something, broken down. Most people don't win. Her eyes softened with something close to admiration. You always win with paper. It lasts longer than emotions. Clara lifted her cup in a quiet toast. To the morning. I lifted mine. To clarity. The clock on her stove clicked from 6:59 to 7 o'clock, the sound crisp, like a promise. The clock on Clara's wall hit 8:12 a.m. when the first call came in. Her phone buzzed lightly on the kitchen table. Clara glanced at it. Yours? I didn't answer. My eyes stayed on the steam rising from the teacup. The phone kept buzzing. Clara leaned closer. Are you going to check it? I already know who it is. The screen lit. Ethan, calling. I flipped the phone over, face down. Seconds later, it buzzed again, then again, 2 seconds apart. Clara raised her brows. Persistent. He's not being persistent, I replied, lifting my cup. He's being cornered. Another buzz. Clara reached for the phone instinctively. Should I answer? No. I placed one finger lightly on the back of the phone. Let him sweat. The phone stopped. Clara exhaled in relief. Too soon. Brrr. 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 A different name filled the screen this time. Martha Monroe. Clara winced. The Queen herself. I lifted the cup, sipping slowly as Martha's face flashed with each ring. The volume of her panic came through even in the way she dialed, fast, desperate, almost shaking the table. The call ended. 5 seconds later, brrr, brrr. Lydia, Clara snorted. She probably thinks tears are currency. I let the phone vibrate until it stopped. Then a text banner slid across the top. Martha. Please pick up. Please, we need to talk. Another. Lydia. Nora. Please answer. Another. Ethan. Mom, please, this is serious. Clara's eyes narrowed. You really rattled them. They rattled themselves, I replied, pushing the phone away as if it were a salt shaker. Seconds later, the buzzing started again. Rapid fire, almost frantic. Clara lowered her voice. Are you sure you don't want to hear what they're saying? They're not saying anything new. She gave me a look. I shifted the phone so she could see the vibrating screen. Watch. Ethan. Calling Ethan. Calling Ethan. Calling Clara let out a low whistle. He's spiraling. The call stopped, immediately replaced by another. Martha. Calling. Then a voicemail banner. Martha. 027. Clara made a face. That one sounds moist. I ignored it and reached for the teapot. My hand stayed steady. That doesn't bother you? She asked. I poured more tea. Their behavior doesn't change the truth. Before she could respond, the phone lit again, this time with an audio message. Clara's eyes widened. Already? I tapped play. Martha's voice burst into the room, high and sharp. Nora, we can fix this. Please, please don't involve a lawyer. We were overwhelmed last night. It was Christmas. Emotions ran high. Just call me back. Clara let out a low groan. She sounds like she's auditioning for a soap opera. Another message buzzed in immediately. Ethan. Voice message. 009. Clara hesitated. You sure you want to hear this one? I tapped the phone gently. Volume up. Ethan's voice came through shaky, the panic unmistakable. Mom, I messed up. Okay? I know I messed up. Just don't make this official. Please call me. Clara stared at me. He sounds terrified. He should be. But terrified of you? No. I lifted the screen with one finger, letting it fall back down. He's terrified of consequences. The next call came in so fast, the phone vibrated off the coaster. Clara caught it. 50 times in under an hour, this is harassment. It's confession. Clara blinked. You're recording all these, aren't you? I tapped the small red dot on my second phone sitting quietly on the counter. Every ring, every voicemail, every attempt to manipulate. Clara's jaw dropped slightly. You started recording before the first call, didn't you? They always call, I replied. Always. Another voicemail dinged. Lydia, 041. Clara muttered, Oh boy. I pressed play. Lydia's voice cracked immediately, the performative sweetness stripped away completely. Nora, please. Ethan is losing it. Mom is crying. The necklace. We'll return it. Just don't ruin us. Please. Answer. Clara blinked at the phone like she wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. She jumped straight to begging. She always jumps. I took another sip. She just finally jumped in the right direction. Buzz, 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 buzz. Clara counted the rings quietly under her breath. 57, 58. The phone finally stopped. Silence. Clara looked at me. They're done? No. As if on cue, brrr, brrr. Clara slapped her hand over her mouth. You're kidding. I reached forward, pressed the side button, and turned the phone off completely. The room went quiet. Clara stared at the blank screen. That's it? You're just done? I folded the napkin beside my cup, neat, precise. They had 58 chances to tell the truth. They took none. Clara leaned back. So what now? I stood, picking up the envelope from the table. Now we go see Martin. Clara swallowed. And the calls? They'll stop when reality hits. She looked at the tea, the fog, the dark morning sky. And when will that be? I opened the door, letting the cold air in. Today. The elevator doors slid open, and the quiet hum of Martin Cole's law office wrapped around me. Everything here was sharp lines, cold air, and silence. The kind of place where truth had nowhere to hide. Martin stood by the window, reading glasses low on his nose, a stack of folders open on the table. He didn't smile. He never did when it was business. "Nora," his voice steady, "close the door." The lock clicked behind me. He studied my face for half a second. "Rough night?" A breath left my lungs. "You could say that." He motioned toward the chair. "Sit. Start from the most important point." I placed the plastic flower on his desk. The cheap petals wobbled as it hit the wood. Martin's eyebrow lifted. "That's what Lydia's mother received?" he asked. "No." I pushed the flower closer. "That's what I received." Martin straightened. "And the necklace?" $53,000, I answered, my voice flat. "For Martha, on Christmas Day." Martin removed his glasses slowly, setting them beside the folder. "Your son bought that?" "No," I corrected, jaw tight. "Ethan presented it. Lydia picked it. Martha wore it. But the payment? That came from my house." Martin didn't move for 3 seconds. Then he pulled a legal pad toward him. "Show me." Documents slid from my purse. Receipts, real estate statements, bank notifications, and the handwritten note I found taped under my dining table. I laid everything out like a battlefield map. Martin scanned each page, tapping his finger once in a while. Unauthorized withdrawals, misrepresentation, forgery, transfer attempts. He paused, and Lydia's signature on a document she had no legal right to sign. My phone buzzed. I didn't look. Martin's eyes flicked toward the buzzing, then back to the papers. He picked up the plastic flower again. "And humiliation," he noted quietly. "Public." My jaw clenched. They laughed. "Who?" "Ethan, Lydia, Martha." My voice tightened. They laughed like I was the entertainment, a prop. Martin leaned forward. "Nora, women your age don't walk into my office over a plastic flower." His tone sharpened. "What do you want to do?" My breath steadied. "I want my house protected. I want every fraudulent move reversed, and I want Lydia nowhere near my property again." Martin studied me like a strategist assessing his queen piece. "You're not asking for revenge." "No. You're asking for control." I nodded. His lips twitched, a rare sign of approval. "Good. Control is clean. Control is legal." He tapped the table twice. "Let's start." He laid out a blank sheet and drew 3 boxes. "Box 1, real estate." He pointed to the first pile. "Your deed stays untouched. We freeze any pending transfers. We block Lydia from accessing anything tied to your estate." A decisive slash of his pen underlined the item. "Box 2, financial fraud." He flipped to the bank statements. "These withdrawals, someone tried to disguise them as household expenses." "Lydia," I answered. "Not confirmed," Martin reminded. "But Ethan signed off on several. That's enough. We file a fraud alert with your bank. Quietly." Another slash of the pen. "Box 3, leverage." His gaze sharpened. "This is the important one." He lifted the diamond necklace receipt. $53,000 assigned to your line of credit? My eyes narrowed. "Without permission. Without knowledge." He nodded. "That's felony level." Silence stretched. Martin's tone dropped. "If we pull that trigger, Nora, Ethan goes under with Lydia. Both of them." I held his gaze. "I know." He watched me for a long second. "You're calm about this." "I've lived with chaos long enough," I replied. "Calm is the only thing I have." Martin set the papers down and folded his hands. "Before I move forward, I need clarity. What's your priority? Protecting yourself or exposing them?" "Both," I answered without hesitation. "But protection first." Martin rose from his chair and walked toward the file cabinet. He unlocked the top drawer and removed a thick folder labeled Emergency Protocol, Client Asset Protection. He placed it in front of me. "We start here." I opened the folder. The first page read, "Irrevocable transfer of ownership. Immediate execution." My heart steadied. "You're recommending this?" "Yes," Martin replied. "If Lydia's family thinks they can use you, humiliate you, or tap into your assets, the only answer is to remove yourself from their reach entirely." He pointed to the signature lines. "Once this is executed, your house moves into legal protection on paper. Not even Ethan can touch it." "And Lydia?" I asked. His eyes narrowed. "She loses every foothold she thinks she has." My phone buzzed again, then again. Martin glanced at it. "They don't know you're here?" "No." "Good." He opened his tablet. "I want you to ignore every call, every apology, every threat. Nothing from them matters until the paperwork is locked." He paused. "You understand the weight of this?" I met his eyes. "Martin, humiliate me once? Shame on them. Humiliate me twice? Shame on me." A breath of approval escaped him. "Then let's begin." He adjusted the contract and handed me a pen. "Sign here. This is the first move." I took the pen. My hand didn't shake. Behind us, my phone buzzed for the 58th time. Martin's eyes hardened. "They're panicking." "No," I corrected, uncapping the pen. "They're losing." The pen touched paper. "Make the next move, Martin." His expression sharpened. "Gladly." Martin slid the signed documents into a black folder and locked it inside his case. His movements were exact, deliberate, like a surgeon preparing for an operation. "Phase 1 is done," he stated. "Now we set the stage." The room felt colder. Not uncomfortable, just clear, clean, like truth had disinfected the air. My phone buzzed again on the desk. Martin didn't look at it. "Let it scream." I folded my hands. "What's next?" He pulled out another packet. "We draft the notice. This one is less gentle." My eyes moved across the header. "Notice of property protection. Unauthorized activity under review." "Once this goes out," Martin explained, "Ethan and Lydia will understand they're not dealing with the woman they humiliated with a plastic flower. They're dealing with the owner, and the owner has counsel." A faint tremor hit my chest, not fear, readiness. Martin continued, "Now tell me everything that happened after the necklace." I leaned back. They laughed. Lydia opened the box and flashed the diamond like it was a trophy. Martha made a show of touching it every 5 seconds. "And Ethan—" My jaw tightened. He watched me. Just watched. "How?" "Like I was a chair. A prop." Martin tapped the end of his pen against the table. "Humiliation by design." "Yes." He nodded once. "Good. That goes into our narrative." My eyebrows raised slightly. "Narrative?" "Every legal move has 2 layers," Martin replied. "The paperwork and the story behind it. People don't fear documents." He paused. "They fear exposure." A slow breath settled in my chest. "You plan to expose them?" "Only if necessary." His tone sharpened. "But I want them to believe it's inevitable." He flipped his legal pad to a fresh sheet. "Tell me about Lydia." A short silence passed before words formed. "She wants status. She wants the world to see her mother wearing a diamond that came from my house without anyone knowing." My voice cooled. "She wants credit for wealth she didn't earn." Martin scribbled notes. "Weak foundation, image dependent, easily fractured if the truth touches it." He looked up. "And Ethan?" A beat. "He bends to whatever makes life easiest." "Meaning?" "He follows Lydia, not reason." Martin nodded as if he'd expected that. "Useful, predictable. Dangerous only in this way a weak man becomes dangerous when a stronger person pushes him." The office lights hummed. Martin placed his pen down. "We use that." My phone buzzed again, vibrating across the table. Martin glanced at it briefly this time. "Ethan?" he asked. 50 missed calls from him, I replied. 8 from Lydia, 10 from Martha. Martin smirked, not amused but satisfied. "Good. Their panic is rising right on schedule." He stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the downtown skyline. They're desperate because they sense you aren't bending anymore. I joined him near the window. The city looked steady, practical, unmoved. They want control, he continued. Tonight we show them they don't have any. How? I crossed my arms. We give them a meeting. My eyes narrowed. A meeting? He nodded. A controlled one, on your terms, in your space. My home? I asked. No, he responded quickly. Never give desperate people proximity to your property. We meet somewhere neutral, somewhere quiet, somewhere they can't perform for an audience. And what do we say? Martin turned toward me. We don't say anything. We show them the paperwork. Silence spread through the room, clean, sharp silence. Martin's tone dropped lower. They need to see that every move they made, every laugh, every purchase, every signature, has consequences. My fingers brushed the edge of the plastic flower still sitting on his desk. They'll come defensive. No, Martin shook his head. They'll come terrified. Defensive people make excuses. Terrified people confess without realizing they're confessing. A beat. He continued. They'll try to flip the script. Blame you. Cry. Plead. Especially Lydia. My jaw tightened. I'm ready. You need to be more than ready. Martin walked back to the table and pulled another set of documents. You need to stay calm enough that their panic echoes off you. I nodded once. He flipped to another page. Before the meeting, we filed 2 things discreetly. He held up 2 fingers. 1, fraud alert. 2, permission freeze. I leaned closer. Explain. Fraud alert stops any new use of your credit. Permission freeze stops Ethan and Lydia from initiating any legal change tied to your property. He paused. In simple terms, they're locked. The words landed with the kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Locked. For the first time, they couldn't touch my life. Martin glanced at the clock. We need to send this first draft to the county office tonight. The printer whirred behind him. My phone buzzed again. A message preview flashed. Lydia. Nora, please. We need to talk. It's not what you think. Martin didn't even need to look. There it is. What? The shift. He returned to the table. First comes anger, then comes panic, then comes guilt. He gestured toward the phone. Congratulations. You've reached phase 2. I turned the phone face down. Martin's voice returned to full sharpness. Now, this is how the meeting goes. He drew a line on the pad. You sit. They enter. You don't stand. You don't greet them. You don't explain. And you? I asked. I sit beside you, not across. Alignment matters. And then? Then I slide the documents across the table. His tone cooled. And I let them drown in their own signatures. My breath steadied. They'll lose control. No, Martin corrected firmly. They'll realize they never had control. A final sheet printed. Martin gathered everything and placed it in a slim black folder. Tomorrow morning, he declared, you text Ethan 1 sentence. My eyebrows raised. Which is? He handed me a card with the exact wording, we need to meet. 6 p.m. Bring Lydia and Martha. That's it, Martin added. No explanation, no emotion. A calm certainty spread through me. They'll come. Oh, they'll run, Martin answered. Fear makes people move fast. He held the folder out. I took it. Tomorrow, Martin said, locking eyes with me, we don't confront them. A beat. We corner them. Martin booked a small conference room on the 8th floor, glass walls, 1 long table, and a single overhead light washing everything in cold white. No Christmas music, no decorations, no places to hide. Ethan stepped in first, shoulders hunched, eyes scanning the room as if searching for an exit. Lydia followed behind him, chin raised too high, clutching a designer purse like a shield. Martha trailed last, pulling off her gloves with trembling fingers. Martin stood at the head of the table, a stack of documents neatly arranged in front of him. He didn't smile, didn't greet them, just lifted his eyes. Sit. The word cut through the room like a switchblade. Ethan lowered himself into the nearest chair. Lydia slid into the one beside him, crossing her legs too quickly. Martha settled at the end, trying to smooth her coat, hands shaking. I took my seat opposite them, placing a single folder in front of me. Quiet, steady, watching. Martin closed the door and locked it. Ethan stiffened. Lydia's fingers twitched. Martha's eyes darted between all of us. The room fell silent. Martin rested both palms on the table. We're not here to discuss feelings. We're here to discuss your actions. Ethan swallowed hard. Mom, we came to work things out. Martin lifted a finger. Ethan froze mid-sentence. This is not a negotiation. This is a review. Lydia let out a small scoff. Review of what? A misunderstanding? Ethan didn't mean... Martin slid a paper forward. Forgery, fraud, misuse of secured property, unauthorized debt. Lydia's mouth snapped shut. Ethan's knee bounced under the table. Martha stared at the document but didn't reach for it. Martin tapped the header. This is the notarized deed. The signature on the attached equity draw does not match the original signature sample. Ethan's breath hitched. It was an emergency. My chair didn't move, but the air around me did. Cold, controlled. Martin continued, voice flat. Emergencies don't include luxury purchases. Lydia bristled. The car was a gift. For whom? Martin's gaze sharpened. The woman wearing a diamond necklace bought with the same unauthorized funds? Martha's hand flew instinctively to her neck, as if shielding the diamonds. They glittered under the harsh light, loud, obvious, incriminating. Martin lifted a small remote. Before we continue, there is something you need to see. The screen on the wall lit up. Christmas Eve, bright lights, Lydia laughing into her phone, Martha opening the necklace, Ethan toasting loudly. Then the camera panned, Nora's face under the flash, holding the $10 plastic flower. Lydia's posture collapsed an inch. Martha shifted in her seat, throat working. Ethan's head dropped, shoulders shaking. The video ended. The room stayed frozen. Martin switched off the screen. We have humiliation, we have motive, we have misuse of funds, and, he lifted another sheet, we have voicemail evidence from the same night. Lydia's eyes widened. Voicemail? Martin held the transcript where everyone could see it. 58 calls, including explicit threats to report a legally purchased vehicle as stolen. Martha let out a low gasp. Ethan's legs stopped bouncing, turned to stone. Lydia stared at him, incredulous. You didn't... Ethan, please tell me you didn't... He didn't answer. He couldn't. His face said everything. Martin stacked the papers calmly. You three created a situation that endangers Nora's financial security, legal status, and personal safety, and you recorded much of it yourselves. No one breathed. He placed the stack down like a judge delivering a sentence. The question is not whether you're liable. The question is how much this will cost you. Martha's voice cracked first. What do you want from us? My folder opened with a soft click. 3 copies of the same document. Thick. Final. Martin rotated the pages toward them. Restitution. Full repayment of the unauthorized equity draw. Transfer of the property title to the Veterans Housing Fund. Immediate relinquishment of any claim to Nora's estate. Ethan's voice came out in a croak. You're taking the house? No, Martin corrected. You gave the house away the moment you forged her name. Lydia slammed her palm on the table. You can't do this. You can't just... Martin didn't flinch. We can, and we will. Mom! Ethan twisted toward me, panic rising. This is our home. It stopped being ours the day you cashed out the equity without permission. My hands stayed folded. Calm. Absolute. Paper holds better than promises. Lydia pushed forward, voice shrill. We were trying to build a future. My family deserves... Your family deserves a lesson in honesty, Martin interrupted. Martha's chin trembled. Her fingers moved slowly to the diamond necklace, unhooking it with unsteady hands. She placed it in the center of the table. "It wasn't worth this," she whispered. Lydia stared at the necklace like it betrayed her. Ethan covered his face with both hands. Martin tapped the signature line with his pen. "This is the moment. Sign, and it stays civil. Decline, and everything goes to court. The video, the calls, the forged signature, the financial records, all public." No one moved. Silence thickened until Ethan broke, shoulders slumping. His hand reached for the pen. Lydia grabbed his wrist. "Don't you dare!" He pulled free. The pen touched paper. A single stroke. Another. Then the final one. Martin lifted the signed contract, checked each line, and stamped the seal. A sharp, echoing thud. Case closed. I rose from my seat. "Let's go, Martin." He collected the documents. "Transfer will be completed by morning." Behind us, Ethan whispered something inaudible. Lydia's breathing turned ragged. Martha wrapped her coat tighter around herself. None of them stood. None of them spoke. The legal summit was over. The elevator doors slid open to the quieter 9th floor. No glass walls, no spectators, just a long hallway and a neutral conference room waiting for us. Martin pushed the door open with 2 fingers. Inside, a smaller table, fewer chairs, dimmer light, a different battlefield. Ethan already stood at the far end, pacing in tight circles. Lydia leaned against the wall, arms folded, mascara smudged. Martha sat stiffly, hands clasped, eyes unfocused. They flinched when I walked in. Martin placed a thick folder at the center of the table. "Sit." The tone left no room for interpretation. Ethan lowered himself slowly. Lydia dragged a chair closer, metal legs screeching. Martha sat last, spine rigid, as if bracing for impact. Martin remained standing. "We're here for one purpose, terms," Lydia snapped. "We already signed something." "That was acknowledgement," Martin corrected. "This is consequence." Silence rippled. Ethan rubbed his face. "Mom, please, can we just talk like a family?" My fingers rested on the folder's corner. Still. Steady. "We tried that when you forged my name." He looked away, throat tightening. Martin slid 3 sets of documents across the table, one for each of them. The pages fanned out like a clean ledger waiting to be marked. Martha blinked rapidly. "What is all this?" "Resolution," Martin replied. "Or exposure. Your choice." Lydia snatched her copy, flipping pages with jerky movements. "This is insane. House transfer? Repayment? A compliance audit?" Her voice pitched upward. "This is punishment, not negotiation." Martin didn't blink. "Your actions dictated the terms." Ethan leaned forward, knuckles white. "Is any of this reversible?" I lifted my eyes to him. "Only by signing." He froze, breath catching. Martin tapped the first page. Line 1. Full repayment of the unauthorized equity draw within 90 days. Ethan's face drained. 90? We don't have... That is not Nora's concern anymore. Lydia choked out a nervous laugh. "You can't be serious. We can't pay back that much." "You should have considered affordability before using someone else's credit," Martin replied. Martha adjusted her coat. "There must be another way." "There is," Martin answered. "Public proceedings." The words hit the room like a slap. Lydia's eyes widened. "Public? You mean court?" "Court," Martin confirmed. "And press, and employment verification, and financial investigation." Ethan's shoulders tensed until they nearly touched his ears. Lydia shot forward. "We have a child. We have reputations. You're threatening to ruin us." Martin's stare was cold. "Your choices already did that. Nora is simply offering a path that avoids further damage." I reached into my folder and placed a single sheet on the table. The room stilled. It wasn't a threat. It was a record of the forged signature, side by side with the real one. Lydia pressed a hand to her chest. "This could get him arrested." Ethan's breathing hitched. Martin answered plainly. Correct. A long, low exhale escaped Ethan's lips as he sagged into his chair. Lydia turned on him. How could you be so stupid? Why didn't you ask me? Why didn't you tell me? His jaw clenched. You told me to get the necklace. You said your mother deserved something nice for Christmas. That doesn't mean you should have stolen someone's house to do it. Martha flinched at the word stolen. Ethan's hands shook. I thought I could fix it before she ever noticed. You didn't, I answered. His gaze locked with mine, raw, lost, and terrified. Martin tapped page 2. Line 2. Immediate relinquishment of any claim to the Langston property, past or future. The title will legally belong to the Veterans Housing Fund. Martha murmured, So the house is gone? You gave it away, Martin replied, without softness. Ethan stared at his copy, lips pressed tight. And if I don't sign? Martin folded his arms. Then we proceed with criminal charges. Lydia shot up from her chair. You can't put your own son in jail. My voice came smooth, untouched. I'm not putting him anywhere. His actions placed him here. Ethan's eyes glistened, not with tears, but with the realization of consequences catching up. Martin tapped the last page. Line 3. Cease and desist on all contact. No calls, no threats, no messages. Violations will result in immediate filing. Lydia's jaw dropped. No contact? At all? You lost that privilege, Martin replied. Martha's voice cracked. Nora, please. We're family. My hands remained folded. Families don't use each other's names to sink themselves into debt. A beat. 2. Then Martha reached up slowly and unclasped her coat, revealing an empty neckline. She'd removed the necklace. It wasn't worth this, she said again, voice barely above a whisper. Lydia stared at her mother as though seeing her for the first time. Ethan reached for the pen with fingers that kept slipping. Lydia grabbed his wrist. Think. You sign this, and everything's gone. His eyes closed. It's already gone. Her voice cracked into a whisper. You're choosing her over us? He looked at her, really looked. No, he breathed. I'm choosing accountability. His hand broke free. The pen touched paper. 3 signatures, 3 futures sealed. Martin reviewed each page slowly, letting the silence settle like dust. Then came the sharp thud of the stamp. Transfer authorized. I pushed my chair back gently. We're done here. Ethan looked up, eyes hollow. Lydia leaned back, stunned. Martha pulled her coat tight around her shoulders as if the room had dropped 20 degrees. Martin closed the folder. The house will be deeded by noon. No one stood as we walked out. No one spoke. Behind us, the room stayed frozen. 3 people staring at the consequences they built with their own hands. The drive back to their house was silent. Ethan gripped the steering wheel like it might dissolve. Lydia stared out the window, jaw clenched so tight a vein pulsed in her neck. Martha sat in the back seat, clutching her purse against her chest, as if bracing for impact. Christmas lights still blinked across the neighborhood, but the glow no longer felt festive. Just harsh, intrusive, too bright for what they were returning to. When they pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same, but nothing in their lives was. Ethan turned off the engine. No one moved. The weight of the signed document sat between them heavier than any argument they'd ever had. Lydia pushed the door open first. I need air. Her heels clicked across the pavement, sharp, angry, brittle. Ethan followed slowly. Martha stepped out last, pausing on the driveway as if unsure she had the right to walk into the house anymore. Inside, the living room still held the remnants of yesterday's celebration. Half-burned candles, gift bags on the floor, a stray ornament rolling near the fireplace. The house smelled of pine and perfume. Martha walked straight to the center table where the jewelry box sat. The diamond necklace wasn't inside. It lay on the floor near the sofa, exactly where she'd dropped it the night they left for the summit. The clasp was bent, one stone slightly loosened, tiny scratches etched along the metal. She bent down, picked it up, and stared at it long enough for her hands to start shaking. Lydia entered behind her. "What are you doing?" Martha's voice came out thin. "Look at this. Look what we did all this for." Lydia rolled her eyes. "Don't start. We're already drowning. I don't need a lecture." Martha held up the necklace. The diamonds no longer sparkled. They only reflected the harsh living room lamp. "This cost more than the down payment on my first house," she whispered. "And now it represents everything we're losing." Lydia snatched it from her hands. "You're being dramatic. We can fix this. Ethan just panicked. He should have refused to sign." Ethan walked in, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled from being tugged at. He looked like a man who had lost a war. Lydia swung toward him. "You signed away our house, our future. Do you understand that?" He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend himself. He simply looked at her with a hollow stare. "I forged her name," he answered quietly. "That's the truth." "That's the truth?" Lydia snapped. "That's your whole explanation?" Ethan dropped onto the couch, elbows on his knees. "You told me your mother deserved something big. You said a necklace would impress people. You said, I never told you to commit financial suicide." Lydia's voice cracked. "I didn't tell you to ruin us." Martha sank into an armchair, covering her eyes. "Both of you, stop. Please." Lydia turned on her mother. "Stop? Stop? We're losing the house, Mom. The deed is gone. Everything we've worked for is gone." "You worked for an image," Martha replied softly, "not stability." Lydia let out a sharp laugh. "You think Nora's better than us? Please. She's being vindictive." Ethan lifted his head. "She's being lawful." Lydia spun toward him again. "Why are you defending her? She's the reason we're not in handcuffs right now." Silence swallowed the room. Lydia's face went pale. "You think she'd really take it that far?" "She didn't have to. Martin made it clear they had enough evidence." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "If we pushed back, they'd file everything." Martha looked up slowly. "He's right." Lydia paced in tight circles, gripping her hair. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." Ethan stared at the floor. "It is." Lydia walked to the mantel and grabbed the last family portrait, taken last Thanksgiving. She hurled it to the ground. The frame shattered, glass spraying across the hardwood. Martha flinched. Ethan didn't react. Lydia stood over the broken picture, chest heaving. "I married into a family that said they were stable, respectable, safe. And now look at us. You've embarrassed me. You've destroyed everything." "You asked for a life we couldn't afford," Ethan murmured, "and I tried to give it to you." Lydia's voice softened, dangerously. "Then why couldn't you do it without dragging your mother into it?" He squeezed his eyes shut. "Because I couldn't. Because my credit is trash. Because my job isn't enough. Because I wanted you to think I was the man you kept bragging about online." Lydia stood frozen. Martha exhaled shakily. "Ethan, sweetheart." Ethan didn't look up. "I'm tired. I'm tired of pretending we're something we're not. Of lying, of borrowing, of hiding bills under the mattress, of chasing a picture that falls apart every time we get close." Lydia backed away as if his honesty burned. "So it's my fault now?" Ethan whispered. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." The quiet in the room grew heavy. Martha held the necklace in her lap. "This house, this life, it was never ours to keep. It belonged to Nora. We acted like it was our trophy." She paused. "She warned us without raising her voice." Ethan leaned back on the couch, exhausted, defeated. Lydia stared at both of them, eyes wide, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You two deserve each other," she spat. "I'm the only one who ever tried to make this family look successful." "And that's the problem," Ethan replied, voice barely above a breath. Lydia froze. For the first time since they'd entered the house, she had nothing left to say. Martha rose, placed the necklace on the coffee table, and walked upstairs without a word. Each step creaked under her weight. Ethan stayed seated, shoulders slumped forward, staring at the fallen portrait. Lydia's breathing became uneven. She grabbed her purse, yanked the front door open, and disappeared into the night. The house stayed still. No lights, no voices, no illusion left standing. Just consequences. And silence. The house was quiet when the sun came up. Not silent from fear, not silent from tension, just quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. I stepped into the kitchen and opened the window. Cool morning air drifted in, carrying the faint sound of early traffic and a few birds somewhere in the distance. The light was soft, clean, unbothered. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove. On the small table near the window sat the plastic flower Lydia gave me on Christmas Day. Pink, cheap, stiff. I picked it up, turned it between my fingers, and placed it back exactly where it had been. Not out of sentiment, out of completion. When the kettle clicked off, I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down. No phone ringing, no voices yelling, no one demanding an explanation, just steam rising from the cup and a quiet kitchen. My laptop sat on the table, still open from the night before. A new email notification flashed. Martin Cole, transfer completed. I clicked it open. The deed has been finalized. Veterans Housing Fund now holds full ownership. Restitution agreement filed. All signatures validated. Case closed. A small line at the bottom. You handled this with dignity. If you ever need anything, call. I leaned back in my chair. The tension that had lived in my shoulders for weeks finally loosened. My breath came easier. The second email arrived a moment later. Clara. Checking on you. Coffee later? Proud of you. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. The morning light shifted across the table, catching the plastic flower and casting its tiny shadow across the wood. It didn't look insulting anymore, just small, harmless. Exactly what it was. I lifted my cup. The warmth settled into my hands. Last night's images flickered faintly in my mind. Ethan's slumped posture in the conference room, Lydia's frozen shock, Martha's trembling hands holding the damaged necklace. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel guilt. Just clarity. Some lessons arrive loudly. Mine arrived quietly, with signatures, timestamps, and documents that could not be argued with. The hallway clock ticked once, twice. The sound was steady, reassuring. I opened a blank document on my laptop, a short note for Clara. They gave me a $10 flower. I gave them a $3 million lesson. Not cruel, just true. I saved it. Closed the laptop, took another sip of coffee. A soft knock came at the door, 2 taps, familiar and light. Clara's way of announcing herself without intruding. I stood and opened the door. Clara smiled, holding her own travel mug. Morning. You look rested. First time in a while, I answered. Her eyes drifted to the plastic flower on the table. You kept it. For now. I shrugged lightly. It reminds me how far they went, and how far I've come. Clara nodded, stepping inside and setting her mug down. Martin texted me. Everything's wrapped up. It is. You okay? I'm peaceful. And I meant it. We sat together in the kitchen, 2 older women who had lived long enough to understand that peace rarely comes from winning an argument. It comes from closing the door on chaos. The morning light grew stronger, warming the tiles beneath our feet. Clara leaned back in her chair. What will you do next? I glanced once more at the plastic flower, then at the open window. I think I'll start fresh, I said, quietly, on my terms. She smiled. That sounds like you. I finished the last sip of my coffee, stood up and placed the plastic flower inside the drawer, not thrown away, not displayed, just stored, exactly where past mistakes belonged. The day felt light, clean, new, and for the first time in a long time, everything around me matched the way I felt inside. Peace, not property. That's what I own now. When I look back at everything that happened, I realize something simple. Peace doesn't come from winning an argument or proving a point. It comes from choosing yourself, quietly, firmly, and without apology. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight in the way they expected. I chose clarity. And clarity gave me peace. And if you're still listening right now, maybe you understand that feeling too. Thank you for spending this time with me. It means more than you know. If this story spoke to you in any way, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I always enjoy reading your messages. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, stories about strength, family, and quiet justice, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps this little community grow. Take care of yourself today, and I'll see you in the next video.